Hi, this is David at Stone Yard. We're here today to talk about trimming of the natural thin veneer. If you look here, we have a long, a little bit shorter, and then a shorter one, and then a longer one. So you may think the stones came this way. They didn't. They were trimmed to fit. And you can see there was additional trimming to fit all of these other pieces in. So let's take a look. Okay, so here we have a stone panel. This is Cambridge blend. And this is 8 inches by 24 inches. And these stones were trimmed, but then put into this jig and then made into this panel. So there's no trimming. As you use this, you're going to just put it in and cut as you need. The next stone, Everest cut, this one has a split face. The top, the bottom, the right, the left is all sawn, even the back is sawn. And so this, again, is very easy to put in. Look at here with the corners. You know, the face is split, the top, the bottom, the right, the left is all trimmed. So very easily, you know, put that in and you have your corner all done. So these are very easy. Our most popular stone is the Boston Blend, and this is some ledge stone. And so what I want to show you is I'm going to trim this little piece off and this piece off. So I've got my 12-pound steel wedge. I've got my 2-pound thin veneer hammer. I'm just going to very kind of carefully go ahead and trim this off. Okay. And so it broke pretty good, but I'm going to take a little bit off the top just to kind of get that looking even better. Okay, so that looks good, but I got to trim this side. And you see, I'm hitting the stone fairly light, and so a little piece broke off here at the top. So I'm going to just see if I can just take a little bit more off just to get this looking just a little bit better. Okay. Another piece a little broke off funny, so just going a little bit more. And you can see by the work, like this is pretty good, but I just want to take a little bit more off. So I'm going to use the bush hammer to kind of get that more flat. All right. And so that's pretty good. So as that butts into another stone, that's pretty even and fits in pretty tight. So that's sufficient. So notice we went from no trimming to a fair amount of trimming. And notice on this corner, we have, you know, this funny little jog left in it. So I could try to trim this by hand, but to help, we back cut it. So we cut in maybe not quite half the distance. If I put this up on the splitter, I can, you know, kind of just carefully hit it down, and then it's just going to break right there. Okay, so now that's a pretty nice corner, you know, as I merge in to that with another stone and stuff. Okay, and again, if I had to do this again, I'd probably back cut it a little bit further in just to get a little bit more off. And again, I can show you that I can do this with this. It just takes a little bit of patience. So just want to go easy. And I'm only taking, you know, somewhat less than an inch off, which is harder to do than if I was taking a little bit more off. Let's see how we make out. And it's broken the wrong way up here. So to continue to be able to use this stone, I'm going to have to continue to trim a little bit more off. Flip it over. I can okay, and that's nice and flat. This is nice and square, even square on this end and fairly flat on the bottom. I see one little knob here that I'll just take off, and that's pretty nice. Okay, so that's how we can hand trim the Boston Blend. One of our easiest stones to trim is the Boston Blend. This next stone here, the Greenwich Gray, it's a hard stone, and on these harder stones, it's a little bit more difficult to trim. So like on this stone here, I'm going to try to trim this off. So this is pretty flat. That's a nice 90. That's a nice 90. But this tapers back, so I want to take some of this off. So if I bring this over to trim this by hand, we're going to come in to probably about here, holding it so it's about a 90 degree. And you can almost hear how hard this is. It almost sounds like a bell. So what I'm going to do next, I've kind of traced that line. Now I'm just going to stop breaking some off. And then I get back to this line that I'm evening out. Okay, so that's pretty good. And you can see it's kind of tedious. I've got one little spot here up at the top that I want to just try to get off. And so I got a little bit of it off. So that's not bad. But you can see it took a little bit of effort. So an alternative, and again, this is a good usable stone, but an alternative would be like on this stone here. Let's look at the back. We back cut. We left this natural because this was pretty good and square. Okay, so let's bring this over to the splitter, and we can hold it this way. We can flip it over. One of the advantages to holding it this way is I can kind of see what I've done and just hold it right over that cut line. I'll come back with a bush hammer. There's a little bit left on that. Okay, so I've got a little bit right there I want to take off. And then on this side, a little bit right here. Okay, so now this stone has been trimmed up, and you can see it fits in there nicely. And as I merge other stones into it and everything, we've got, you know, a pretty good line. Now again, see how this tapers back some? That's okay. We have a good line. And again, typically you're going to joint this, so you would separate it just a little bit and then put a mud joint in there. Okay, so the Greenwich is a fine stone if that's the color that you like. Back cutting is the best way to handle the one that's hardest to trim, and the ledge and all the Boston blends are one of the easiest ones to trim. All right, so as you can see, the Boston blend was easier to trim than the Greenwich gray, but there's still ways to get around and use the Greenwich gray. But depending upon your comfort level, the panels or the Everest cut might be the better choice. And again, the Boston blend, you know, so depending upon what you feel comfortable with, you can make your selection.